And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and I really like the new updated version from Restoration Games of Return to Dark Tower. Fantastic game. And today I'm taking a look at two expansions. The Dark Horde expansion, which is miniatures, and then the Alliances expansion, which adds guilds and skulls and all kinds of stuff. This is actually, even though this is a much smaller box than this one, this is a much more substantial add because, again, like I said, this one adds miniatures. I'll show you. Okay, so first we're going to take a look here at the Dark Horde expansion, which is literally miniatures. Let's take a look at these miniatures. So now all the miniatures come unpainted, but there is a wash on them. Now, Wendy painted these here for the Dice Tower because these are the ones we use the most, the quest markers. And so they were the first thing I wanted painted. We didn't paint this one because, well, it's kind of perfect the way it looks. But looking at these miniatures, and I love this one. I almost want to play with the Titan now when I play the game just because I love this gigantic miniature here. And we got the dragons and some of the bosses here. So these have a wash on them, but because they washed it on such a dark gray, it's almost, to me, it's not as noticeable. I prefer the lighter gray wash myself. They're not bad though, and I will say using miniatures is, to me, it sounds better than the icons themselves, or than the tokens. Here we have all the regular monsters, just because they really pop on the board. And so if you take the insert out of the main game and put these in bags, they will fit, and you will be able to use miniatures instead when playing the base game. So I don't know that this is essential, this expansion, but having the miniatures certainly isn't a bad thing. All right, now taking a look at the Alliances expansion. So this is a much more involved expansion. It comes with a bag, and I'll tell you why in a bit. This is the rule book here, explains how to add everything in. So first we have two new characters. So first we have the Haunted Recluse. So the Haunted Recluse is a little interesting because they are all about skulls. So at the beginning of your turn, you can move a skull from any building to any other building with 2 or fewer skulls. Pretty interesting. Okay. They have an undead advantage. When a skull comes out in their home kingdom, you can place it on any building with 2 or fewer skulls in any kingdom. So they can manipulate skulls, which is really handy, especially with the new skulls that are added in this particular expansion. The wild advantage for buildings with skulls on or adjacent to your space or preventing 2 losses is an interesting thing because the Haunted Recluse actually does better with skulls in the area. So sometimes I found that I'm like, I want to clear this area, but if not, I get these advantages and things if you upgrade to these. The Sin Bearer is very interesting. At the end of the month, you can spend 12 troops to remove all skulls from your current kingdom. That's pretty amazing. I've used it to great effect. In fact, you can combine this with the putting skulls and moving them all to the one kingdom so you can clear them out. However, you do take the danger of a building being destroyed more. But this is a cool character. I don't know that I would give this to someone who's playing the game for the first time, but it's fun. The Arkwright is really fun. Possibly one of my favorite characters in the game. They come with these battlement tokens. And what they do is, at the beginning of your turn, you can place a battlement on any space or move 2 spaces. When it's on a space, it gives to anybody an extra wild advantage in battle. That's pretty awesome. But even more importantly, the Arkwright themselves, it gives them 2 wild advantages. So that's pretty great. They're a great fighting character. And then when they upgrade, their battlements just do better things. Gives them the advantages when you quest. Gives you a battlement. When you're on a battlement, you can cleanse to remove skulls from adjacent buildings or attack people in an adjacent space. So that's just really fun. I really like this character. You know, I mentioned the other one I wouldn't give to a beginner, but the Arkwright, I would give to someone who was playing for the first time. The biggest change this expansion adds are guilds. You're going to put one of these guilds next to each of the 4 sides of the board. So you see they're rounded, so they fit right in there. And then the building of that type, village, citadel, sanctuary, a bazaar, becomes the guild for that spot. And you do this by adding a flag. So this is the one for the citadel here, the Arcane Scouts. And in a cool surprise, I didn't even know this was in here. I'm always a big fan of hidden things like that. You just snap the flag in, and this just shows you, all right, that is the guild building. Now this matters for a couple reasons. You now have something else you can do for a heroic action. And you just put this on top of your board. It covers up the other stuff. But when you're at a guild hall, you can now gain 2 influence. Influence is a shared resource that everybody has. The different players can use it. They're working together to manipulate these here, the guild ranks. And so you're trying to move up the guild ranks. Each guild has a negative thing. Like here, for example, you can't cleanse where the paladins are at rank 1. Although if you pay 5 influence, now you have to spend something to cleanse. Here, once you pass this rank, you get stuff, and after you cleanse, you get 2. So the higher the rank, it goes from having something negative. Treasures cost +2 spirit. Here they cost 1 less spirit. And when you reinforce to gain a treasure, you also gain a top card of the treasure deck. So if you can get these across the board, they're pretty awesome. And so as you're moving these up, you're going to, like I said, you have to pay 5. You use the reinforce action when you're at the Citadel, and you are going to increase the guild from rank 1 to 2. But there's even something better than that. Next to each of these, and you'll randomly put these out at the beginning of the game, you're going to put 3 of these random companions that are out here. And these companions, when you get one, you're going to put it next to your board. So when you move, for example, here from level 1 to level 2, you get Ula the Nomad. When you move from level 2 to level 3, you would get the Pegasus. And so you would get some special ability. Here your base move is +2. And +2 wild advantages in mountains. If you influence outside your home kingdom, you get an extra 3 influence. +1 wild advantage outside your home kingdom. And on the back, it kind of tells you a little bit about what the characters do. When you get a character, you put them into the app because something might happen. So for example, Maxim the Beast lets you carry extra treasures. When you get treasures, you get this, +2 beast advantages. But there's an event he'll trigger where he'll magically transport items and companions. We found this out. We played with him because in the app, suddenly it showed up at the end of a month. We could switch things around. And so there's all kinds of different things. Like she bribes the guard. These are so much fun to play with. They really add a lot to the game. But you have to go to the guilds and move them up to get them. There's also going to be a guild quest, which will be on the board. And if you don't complete that, the guild might get annoyed and might move down. So you have to keep an eye on that. But at the end of every month, you're going to get influence equal to the number of buildings that have no skulls in them. So this gives you a reason when your skull falls out of the tower, you might put in a building that already has some skulls in it because you want to have as many open buildings as you can, but it makes it more dangerous. So this is a really neat addition to the game. The game also comes with a whole pile more treasures. Some of these treasures are going to be very specifically like this one here. When you influence, gain an extra 2 influence and also a potion. And others are just more, straight up, hey, before you move, you can place your hero in any space with a foe, +1 beast advantage. So, whatever. The more treasure cards, the better, says I. And then finally, the last thing this expansion adds are the power skulls. The different colored skulls that you have. So what the scenario will tell you to do, this is why a bag is included in the game, you're going to take out some of the normal skulls and replace them with some of these, depending on how the scenario works. And each skull, when you move into a spot with that skull, if it's a green one, you lose an item. Ugh, they're the worst. Purples, you lose an influence. Not as bad. Red, fire skulls, you lose 4 warriors. And blue, you lose a spirit. I really like this because, other than the green one, the purple, blue, and red ones, I don't have to remember what they do. I just remember, hey, it's the same color as warriors, so I lose some warriors. So this sounds like a negative thing to add to the game, but did I mention these amazing companions? You'll be fine. Storage. I don't particularly like having extra big boxes around, and I'm going to say here that in this particular case, I would, I know what I'm doing with these. I'm getting rid of the insert in the base game. I know that insert holds that tower nicely, although parts of that insert I don't like. Stacking tiles, and that's something I'm not a big fan of. But I'll be careful with my game. I'm not going to throw it around. So if you do that, this stuff will all fit in there. Now, do you need the miniatures? You don't. They're cool. Don't get me wrong. I like having extra miniatures in the game. And I especially like the miniatures that replace those little stand-up tokens. I still can't remember which which of those quest markers stands for what. I always forget that in the game, and so does everybody else, but it doesn't matter because the app tells you what quest is where. This is cool, but don't feel like you're missing out if you don't have it. The game is very playable without miniatures, but it is nice to have these. This, though, man, do I love this expansion. First of all, 2 more characters. There's now 6 characters to pick from. That's great. But also, I really like the guilds. Yes, it does add an extra thing to the game, but it's not too difficult. It gives you, I've definitely played this game before. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do in my turn here. When it comes to the reinforce action, I guess I can get some troops or something. But now, I'm like, I want to increase the guild. It gives me that person, and those people are amazing. Yes, those guilds add negative events. Yes, there are now colored skulls in the game that are negative. But those companions are so cool that I think, and I might be wrong, I think it actually makes the game slightly easier, which I am perfectly fine with. These cooperative games are hard enough as it is. Now, it might add too much stuff. If it's your first time playing, I don't know that I would play with the guilds because it does add a lot. You can play with these 2 new characters. The 2 new characters do not need the guilds to be involved. But everything else does go together. If you're using the guilds, you throw in the power skulls. But the game's going to know that. It's going to tell you that. The guilds themselves, you click that in the app that you're adding that in, and then it will tell you what power skulls to put in. But the app does handle a lot of this stuff nicely. I don't have to remember. Like, for example, one of the companions, a great one, is a healer. The first 5 troops you lose in battle go on that healer. At the end of a month, you get all those troops back. Oh, my word, that's fantastic. The app tells you. They're like, hey, all the troops there, come back home. Love it. The Hippo one that I showed you that lets you trade, the app reminds you of this. That's really fun and cool. This game, it really adds a lot to it. Return to Dark Tower has really, it's one of those cooperative games, the more I play it, the more I enjoy it. Yes, it has this gigantic monstrosity of a tower that is cool, but, is definitely, I think we could say, overproduced, right? There's no question on that. Throwing miniatures in the game isn't going to make it less overproduced, but man, when I play with this full thing out there, wow, what a complete, entertaining, fun game. So while I'm very cautious, I'm not going to say this is a must-have expansion or the Dark Alliance's expansion, but if you do like the game, it does add a ton of stuff. This really improves the game for me a lot. I already liked the original game a lot. This adds a lot more to it. So anyway, those are the Return to Dark Tower expansions. I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. Dice Tower Judgment, excellent!